Hi guys, it's Michelle, and today's video is going to be a deep dive into the dark side of Disney. I have wanted to film this video for quite some time because honestly there is just so much dark shit when it comes to Disney. The company, Disneyland, all of the above. We're gonna go all into it. Disney Channel, which is like some of my fave things to talk about, so let's just jump right in. All right, we're gonna start off with the man himself, Mr. Walt Disney. So Walt Disney is often celebrated as a visionary and of course like a pioneer in animation and theme parks and all of that good stuff, but there is low-key a lot of dark shit around him, and there have been constant rumors and controversies surrounding Walt Disney that I think Disney the company kind of tries to hide. So in the 1930s, Walt used to attend German American Bund meetings, which is a pro-Nazi organization. A lot of these accusations have been contested, but if you look in a lot of Disney's work, there is a lot of anti-Semitism and racism in general, and it's not cute. I feel like some of the Disney stuff that is racist is just outwardly like insane. Like there are so many things that have been basically banished off of Disney that Disney tries to hide. All of these different movies have racist songs and undertones, and honestly to say undertones is kind of understating it. It's like clearly racist. But the anti-Semitism claims have kind of been defended by other people in the company who worked with Walt Disney and claim that he was not an anti-Semite. I don't know. Walt Disney has definitely always been pretty shady. Due to this, there has been a lot of shadiness and darkness in Disney movies as a whole. Disney is obviously seen as something for children. It is supposed to be for children as a children's network. These movies are made for children, but there are a lot of dark undertones regarding so many different Disney movies and TV shows that just freak you out. So The Little Mermaid, a lot of people have critiques on it, and basically, honestly, kind of any Disney princess movie, I would say, besides Frozen, because that was when things started to switch up in a more girl power way. But The Little Mermaid was low-key very hated on, because Ariel's like whole point is that she just gave up her voice for a man. Like she gave up her ability to communicate for a boy that she doesn't even know, and it's just kind of rubs you the wrong way when you think about like what the actual rhetoric was during that time around like women, and it's just kind of gives you the ick. I do feel like the whole narrative of like a Disney prince and princess, like it was perpetuating like this, you know, relationship or like savior complex that the girl needs to be saved, the princess needs to be saved by a man. Again, they kind of moved away from this at the Frozen years and like Moana and such, but it's still definitely prevalent within a lot of different stories. Beauty and the Beast is one that gets me. Like I don't know why this shit is so popular, because a lot of people say that Beauty and the Beast is like low-key romanticizing abusive relationships because the Beast is aggressive and controlling at first, and Belle's love for the Beast is kind of low-key Stockholm Syndrome, and I just feel like not a great message for young women. In early Disney movies, there's also a lot of lore about like hidden messages within the films that are creepy. It's like in The Lion King, some fans have spotted that in dust particles, it looks like it says sex. Disney actually said that it states SFX because that's the name of their special effects team, but I don't know, I kind of always feel like they know what they're doing, low-key. Also, like the poster for The Lion King like looks like a woman, like a naked woman, and it's so insane. The Ariel poster literally had a penis in the drawing on the castle, and to the point where the freaking worker got fired who did that. It's just creepy that you have people like that working for kids shows. There's a big conspiracy theory about Aladdin. There's a scene where you can allegedly hear the phrase "good teenagers take off your clothes" whispered in the background.
Mouse. Come on, good teenagers, take off your clothes. On good teenagers, take off your clothes.
I don't really know if I think that that's exactly what it's saying, but I couldn't tell you what else it would be. But either way, it's just definitely been a reoccurring experience that Disney has put some dark shit in all of their movies and TV shows. Personally, I think a lot of this shit goes over kids' heads, like in the same way SpongeBob and all of these things do. Like I don't think it's right, and I think it's really weird. But I do think growing up with the concept of thinking that, especially as a woman, believing like, oh, a man has to come save you, like that's the key to your life, can definitely be damaging for children to have to grow up with that mentality. Honestly, I think it's weird. But to me, the worst part about Disney as a company is definitely the exploitation of child actors. And that came a little bit later on, like past the old ages of Walt Disney himself. The Disney Channel has launched so many different young actors into stars, but not without prices usually. For example, pretty much every Disney star, but every child actor kind of as a whole, usually has some sort of like breakdown or difficulties during life, drug problems, a lot of different things, and just difficulties handling the fame, which I think is normal for child actors as a whole. But with Disney specifically, I do feel like they are set to have this specific image that they never really had in the first place. Like Miley Cyrus, for example, has always been someone who was rocking the boat at Disney. Like she always was. Like throughout her teenage years, she kept doing things that normal teenagers do, and she wasn't that squeaky clean Disney kid that everyone wanted her to be. And I think that pressure was put on Miley as a young kid was what led her later to have just like that kind of identity crisis where she was struggling to separate herself from the character. And Miley literally talked about herself having these unrealistic expectations thrown upon her at such a young age and having crazy work schedules. It's just not a normal thing for kids to go through. And obviously Miley struggled at some point as well, like, publicly. And honestly, it's really always hard to see because, again, this is just a perpetual thing that keeps happening with child stars, and you would think that maybe we should stop having children be child stars, but no one cares. They want to make money off of you, and that's it. Selena Gomez is another person who was a Disney girly who opened up about the difficulties that she faced. Selena talked a lot about the intense pressure to maintain a squeaky clean image and the toll that it took on her mental health. So Selena Gomez has an autoimmune disease called lupus, and she heavily attributes her lupus condition being worse to the anxiety and the stress that she faced during her Disney years. Selena even stated, quote, "I was under so much pressure to be perfect, to look perfect, to act perfect. It was a lot for a teenager to handle." Demi Lovato is another person who was on Disney star, squeaky clean image, who was struggling with a drug addiction while she was on the Disney Channel. Honestly, Demi struggled with a lot throughout her teenage years. I think the fame and the way that Disney handled it is totally to blame. The amount of stress and pressure she had to conform to this specific Disney image. And she also felt a lack of support from the network. And her issues with eating disorders began in her Disney years because of this pressure to be perfect, to look good, to not gain weight, to do this and that a certain way. All of this pressure was coming from Disney. And again, I just think that if you are going to have children be actors and young teenagers be actors, they need therapists in there 24/7, because this is not a normal thing for kids to deal with. And clearly we have seen it time and time again where it vastly affects their mental health. I mean, let's not forget Britney Spears is also technically a Disney kid to begin with. She started with the Mickey Mouse Club. Obviously, Britney has had a lot of struggles throughout her life. And I do think a lot of it is contributed to the way that the tabloids were treating her when she was so young. This is a not normal thing to go through. And when you're forced into that role, it's weird. Lindsay Lohan is another great example of this. She wasn't technically on a Disney show, but a lot of her movies are Disney. And I feel like she is another person who didn't have any support from the network. And I want to do an entire video on Nickelodeon, by the way. I've done a couple things related to Nickelodeon because obviously there's a lot with Dan Schneider, but honestly, we could do a deep dive on that too because it's dark. Shia LaBeouf is another Disney star who said that his time at Disney was challenging and the pressure to perform from a young age was what took a toll on his mental health, leading to struggles with substance abuse later in life. And again, this is just a pattern that keeps being seen, and I feel like it is being overseen by Disney. Like, they know it's happening, but they're not doing really anything to stop it. And I think Demi Lovato is honestly one of the saddest cases of this, because it was so prevalent while she was on the network, and like no one was really doing anything to help. And that is hard. Like, there have been times where Demi almost died, and it's just so sad and heartbreaking that that wasn't taken seriously. And I, again, think that this is some of the most damaging shit that Disney does as a whole. But I guess you can contribute it to Hollywood in general. But for sure, Disney is definitely one of the biggest, like, platforms to, like, raise young people to become stars. And you can definitely see just throughout history how it has taken a toll on these kids' mental health, and it's not good. Also, speaking of Nickelodeon, Brian Peck, who was the person who was convicted of essaying Drake Bell in 2004, despite his criminal record, he was still hired by Disney to work on The Suite Life of Zack and Cody, which is just so gross. It just raises a lot of questions about the background checks, the hiring practices that Disney must take. Like, how do you let that slip through your fingers? How does that happen? A convicted felon. That's crazy. Speaking of the friggin' Suite Life of Zack and Cody, I always see Kim Rhodes, who played their mom, talk about how Disney was actively rude to Dylan Sprouse because he was, like, thicker than Cole Sprouse, I guess. He was just completely body shamed, and she, as, like, a mother figure, had to step up for them because she just thought it was preposterous the way that Disney was treating them.
Someone of significant power came down to the craft service, which is where they have all the tasty food, for those of you who don't know, and screamed at the number of donuts and said no more junk food until he looks like him again. Because Dylan and Cole had different body types. And in front of everyone, Dylan was body shamed. I was like, you don't have the right to say that to a child. You don't have the right to be writing for children if that is your attitude. Never again.
I do think that the psychological toll that being famous takes on children is not necessarily just Disney's fault, but you think that if you want an environment that is successful, like Disney, Nickelodeon, any of these things, you would want your people, your actors, to thrive in these situations. So you would have preventative measures to go against, you know, having the classic child star, like, mental breakdown, like, to avoid that whole thing by having fucking therapists on set. I don't know. I just don't understand how this isn't, like, required. Honestly, I think the worst part about Disney as a company, it's just the exploitation of children. Not good. But let's finally discuss the Disney parks. There is a lot of dark shit in regards to Disney as a whole, but the parks is definitely something that a lot of people have questions about, because it's supposed to be this perfect place and everything is supposed to be perfect Disney and happy, literally the happiest place on earth. A lot of times it's not, and low-key, Disney loves lying about some shit that happens there. So there have been a few instances where people literally died on Disney property, and Disney tries to cover that up. There have been other instances that are, like, more low-key, that they didn't die technically on Disney property, but an accident would happen at Disney and they would transfer them to the hospital, like, immediately, so that they could say that they didn't die on Disney property. But who's to say if they had been properly cared for on Disney property, if they would have died in the first place? I don't know. So one of the most infamous incidences occurred in 1974 when an 18-year-old employee named Deborah Gale Stone was crushed to death by Disneyland's America Sings attraction. So Deborah was caught between a stationary wall and the moving platform of this and was literally crushed to death, which is just so horrifying. Like, how the fuck does this happen at Disney World? And again, it's another thing they just try to sweep under the rug. I remember this being a really big one because I lived in Florida at the time, but in 2016, at Disney's Grand Floridian Resort, a 2-year-old boy named Lane Graves was playing near the water when an alligator attacked him and killed him, which is fucking nuts. And I will say, I have been to that exact location where this kid, like, got swept away by the alligator on the beach. I'm pretty sure he was probably in the water. I don't know why you would let your kids play in the water in Florida, like, yes, theoretically the parents should know better, but also the signage, not enough. Like, there was not enough signs, and it should be honestly impossible for a child to be able to even get to the water. I just think that is poor on Disney's behalf, personally. In 2003, a 22-year-old man named Marcelo Torres died while 10 other riders were injured on the Big Thunder Mountain roller coaster. It just derailed at Disneyland, which is terrifying. Because at some point, a new person like was in charge of Disney, and they decided to save money by not checking the maintenance of the rides that often. And when that happened, a lot of accidents occurred in that time period, including one of a 5-year-old boy in 1998 who was killed by the Disney's Roger Rabbit Toon Spin ride malfunctioning. Again, I just feel like the safety protocols in the early 2000s, late 90s were not it for Disney, and even before that as well. But that specific time period, there was just too many accidents occurring. But to me, what bothers me about it is the way that Disney tries to like hide those things. A lot of former cast members also talk about the mistreatment of Disney cast members and employees, and honestly it paints the park in a very less than magical way, which is sad but honestly reality. So former cast members have shared stories about long hours, low pay, strict enforcement of the company's images and policy. One former employee even described the experience as magical on the outside, but exhausting and sometimes dehumanizing on the inside. Also, a lot of cast members claim that people go to Disneyland to scatter their loved ones' ashes, like all of the time. There's especially one I remember of a woman scattering her son's ashes on the Haunted Mansion, which is just creepy because then like the cast members probably have to like sweep that up, which is just so weird. And a former employee said, quote, "We'd find ashes almost every week. It's not something that we advertise, but it happens." A lot of cast members also claim that it was physically and mentally draining because they would have to stay in character and be smiling no matter what, even if they were sick or tired. And I just think they put a lot of pressure on their cast members as well. On a darker note, Disney has also had reports of unpaid labor, strict appearance guidelines, and limited working breaks, which again reveals like a more complex and challenging work environment than you would expect at Disneyland. In 2018, a survey was conducted that nearly 3/4 of all Disney employees claimed that they did not earn enough money to cover basic expenses, which is honestly really sad, considering I feel like the image that they provide of Disneyland seems like it's a great place to work and they must have a great company policy. So the fact that a lot of these people are not making enough to make ends meet is really sad. A lot of cast members have compared working for Disney to being in the military, but with like a lot more smiles, just because there was a specific image that Disney always wants to maintain, and it felt very, very strict. I also think something that is low-key, high-key, so fucking creepy is to be a Disney princess, because there are Reddit threads about who the Disney princesses are and trying to find when they work, and who these girls are, like finding their real Instagrams and stuff and like being in love with them. They've had to deal with so many creepy, inappropriate behaviors from guests. But not only that, again, there's an entire Reddit to try and find these Disney workers. Just stalking, like going to there to because you know that they're working. That is so fucking creepy. And I just feel like, again, the regulations on it just should. Disney has a lot of power. I think they can do better. Again, I just think a lot of this is really interesting because I think Disney does try to hide a lot of stuff, cover up a lot of their tracks, and it's common with companies, I guess, but with Disney, it is such a big company and it is based on being perfect and perfection and the happiest place on earth and all this stuff, and it's just interesting to have the fourth wall be broken and to know that there is some dark shit going on within this company. But Disney, don't ban me, please. Because I do love a Disneyland excursion, I'm not gonna lie, but like, yeah, this shit is creepy. It is. I don't know how they would deal with the regulation on the whole stalker thing, but they need to for the Disney princesses, because that actually really freaks me out. I don't like it. But anyway, that is it for today's video. If you guys liked it, please give it a big thumbs up. Let me know in the comments below what you guys think of all of these Disney conspiracy theories and the dark side of Disney. What do you think? Is there anything that you want to contribute? Let us know in the comments below. But that is it. Make sure you follow me on Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram, and subscribe for new videos every week. And I'll see you guys later. Bye.